Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to my Link's Awakening 2019 guide to Mabe Village. Mabe Village is the town in which we start our adventure, so I figured we'd go over a couple of noteworthy points here in town, just to kind of get you guys a couple of things to get started in the game, and go over some of the things that we might need to do later in the game. Entering from the south entrance of the town, you'll notice two kids throwing a ball back and forth to each other. Talk to them and they'll give you a couple free tips here and there, but there's also a library right behind them where you can also read a couple of books to get some sort of general knowledge about the game if you've never played it before. So yeah, just quick tips there. After exiting the library, you'll notice that there's a town well behind it. If you go up the slope and break the bushes and drop down into the well, you can get a free fourth of a heart piece, which will in turn help you build up your heart collection. Moving to the right from here, the first building we come across is Bow Wow's house, where if you go into the left entrance, you can talk to the owner of the Bow Wows, or you can go into the right entrance where there is a smaller Bow Wow who will talk to you about trying to get her some feminine accessories. Heading down from here, you can go to Old Man Ulrira's house, and if you go inside and try to talk to him, he basically just tells you that he doesn't want to speak to you face to face, but if you go out from here and to the right a little bit, there is a telephone hut where you can actually call him, and he lets you know that you can find these huts all over the world map, and if you call him on these, he'll give you small little tidbits of tips and information about the area to kind of like guide you in the right direction. Going even further right from here, we reach the bottom right corner of the town where you'll see the Trinity Game shop. This is basically just like a little crane game where you can pay rupees to try to win prizes. It's actually a really great way to get money, but we're going to come back to this in just a minute. Above this is a small patch of grass that you can kind of go through and, chop down if you want to try to grab a few like small rupees here and there. And to the left of that is Marin and Taryn's house where you initially start off the game. So there's nothing really you can do inside there besides just talk to Taryn if he's home. Above Taryn's house, you'll find Marin standing in sort of like this little town square thing with a little wind spinner next to her, and if you actually talk to her, she'll sing you a rendition of the Windfish Ballad. I thought that was kind of cool. Moving just to the right of this, we find the town shop. This shop is actually very interesting because he will sell you different sorts of things, and you can also steal stuff from him. You can get away with it too, but he'll murder you when you come back, so kind of up to you. You actually get to keep whatever item you steal, but then you're kind of branded as a thief for the rest of the game, so people will, instead of calling you by your actual name, they'll call you Thief. So I guess take that for what it's worth. Heading north of the shop, we find the Dream Shrine, but the entrance is blocked by like these heavy rocks. We're not going to be able to go in here until we have an item that we acquire later in the game, so we're just going to kind of forget about this for now. It doesn't really have any relevance besides like actual story stuff later in the game, so just to avoid spoilers and stuff, we're just going to head to the left. Here we find the biggest house in town, occupied by Papal and Madame Meow Meow. Not my names, those are actually their names. But they have a little kid, and they also pretty much are the parents of every other kid in the town. This has to do with a little bit of a trade sequence that we're going to get into probably towards the end of the video, so we'll come back to this. That pretty much does it for all of the houses and stuff inside the actual like regular town. So from the Bow Wow's house, we're going to head north a little bit, and we'll find the fishing hut, and we'll kind of go over some of the stuff you can get there. Now that we're at the fishing hut, you can give the fisherman 10 rupees and he'll kind of give you the basics on how to fish and eventually throw you into the fishing sequence. Just to kind of give you guys the basics, the longer you hold A, the further he'll cast the line. You kind of use the left stick to wiggle the little bait or whatever it is in front of the fish's mouth, so that way he'll bite onto it. And then once you do that, you can quickly tap A and he'll reel the fish in. Other than that, if the fish tries to swim away from you and your line starts to shake a whole lot, just kind of like give him some slack and don't hold A as much. That way it doesn't break your line. But yeah, pretty straightforward. Just take your time, be a little patient with it, and you can pretty much catch any fish in here. So let's get to some of the rewards. If you go for the smallest fish on the screen, I think he's underneath the very top fish, more towards the left side of the screen. If you catch him, the fisherman will say that's not much of a fish. He'll give you a little bit of a coin reward for it, and then he'll also reward you with a heart piece. So that'll be another fourth of a heart piece towards getting you an extra heart. So that's always useful. After that, I would recommend going for one of the fish that's swimming closest to the bottom. They should be the biggest fish on the screen. They're a little bit harder to reel in, of course, but if you give it a little bit of time and patience, it shouldn't be too bad. But after you pull him in, you get a pretty decent sized rupee reward for it, and he'll also give you another fourth of a heart piece. So that's just 2 in a very short amount of time. So that's half of a heart already. Also, after catching the largest fish, he's going to give you a new lure, which is going to be the middleweight lure. This one's going to help you catch anything bigger a lot easier. And of course, if you can kind of be observant a little bit and look in the bottom left corner of the fishing screen, you'll notice that there's sort of like little bottle. This is actually a fairy bottle, and if you kind of latch onto it, you won't be able to use the small lure because it'll fall off. But your whole goal here is to use the middleweight lure to attach itself to the bottle and make sure you avoid hitting the bottle against any fish, as it will knock it off the lure. So just kind of be slow with it and reel it in at the best time to kind of dodge all these other fish, and you'll get a fairy bottle. These are really helpful, especially in the first dungeon, because you can capture a fairy once you're done with any of the little bosses or whatever, and it'll initially save your life if you run out of hearts, because the fairy will restore all your hearts. So, very nice to have. Other than that, though, the fishing game is basically just like a nice little mini game that you can play to get some rupees here and there. So, yeah, let's move on, and we're going to go over to the Trinity Game and go a little bit more in depth with that. On your first time entering into the Trinity Game, you'll notice a couple of different prizes, some of them being the Yoshi doll. There's a heart piece there, there's even a shield. The shield actually isn't that great of a prize unless you're later in the game. Some of the enemies will take your shield, and that's basically just one of the easy ways to replace it. But let's get into some of these prizes. More often than not, there's going to be 2 different rupees on the board. One is red and one is purple. I definitely only recommend going for the purple rupee, as it's worth 50, and the red one is only worth 20. The 50 one's just going to give you much more profit here, and it's just the easier way to go. Other than that, I would definitely recommend going for the heart piece, as, this should be your 4th heart piece if you're getting all of the ones in the village so far. So that's going to be an easy first heart. So after you grab that, we can move on to the Yoshi doll. So if by chance you talk to the kid outside and to the left of the shop, he's going to tell you basically that his mom has been really wanting a Yoshi doll, and it's basically for her little baby that she has. And you can come in here and get the Yoshi doll, and it'll basically start this sort of trade sequence that you go throughout the game. We're not going to be going over the whole thing, but we'll do some of the easy ones around the village just to kind of get things going, but we're going to get to that in just a second. So other than those prizes that are on the board, every time you come back in, it's going to refresh his stock, and there's always going to be the 2 rupees at least. But the further you progress into the game, it's going to replace some of the prizes with different things that you already have. Sort of like it'll put bombs on the board if you've unlocked bombs, or even magic powder if you're a little bit, past the forest or whatever. But it's just going to give you some sort of little prizes here and there. And as you progress, there's going to be these little figurines that get put into the shop. And these are basically just like small little figures that you can place on these little pedestals that are scattered throughout the town. And they're just kind of like little Super Mario references that you can put down and place here and there. They're kind of cool. Just something new to this game at least. With all of that out of the way, though, that's pretty much all the Trinity Game has to offer. It's definitely the easiest way to get money, in my opinion. It was probably the best way to farm out easy 50 rupees with just exiting and coming back in and grabbing that purple rupee every time. But yeah, we'll move on to this little trade sequence here. So, the beginning of the trade sequence is pretty simple. You go inside the Trinity Games and you get the Yoshi's doll, as to be expected. As you walk out, the little kid is going to say, "Oh wow, you've got the Yoshi doll. My mom really wants that." So we basically are just going to head to the very top of Mabe Village and go in the double-doored house and talk to the woman. From here, the woman tells you that she wants the Yoshi doll for her baby, so you give it to her, and then she will in turn trade you the pink ribbon. So from here, we're going to head down to Bow Wow's house and enter in the right entrance to talk to the smaller Bow Wow. If you've talked to the Bow Wow before, she basically tells you that she wanted some accessories to begin with, so she says, "Oh wow, you have the ribbon, give me that ribbon and I'll give you some canned dog food." So there we go, we have the dog food now. From here, we're basically going to head down out of the south entrance of the town and back towards the little shore. There's a hut that you can find with an alligator man named Sail. We're going to be heading to his house to talk to him about this dog food. If by chance you've come in here before and talked to him, he basically tells you that he's super into canned food. So giving him the actual dog canned food, he basically just eats the entire can whole and doesn't even take the food out. And then from there, he gives you the bananas. But this is pretty much going to be the end of the trade sequence for now, because the rest of this is kind of a little bit later in the game. So yeah, now you've got a good little start on the beginning of your trade quest. Now that we're done with all of that stuff, that's pretty much all I have to offer you for the Mabe Village guide. There's not really much more that you can do here from now. You can try and head up to the forest and progress on your way. I'll probably be making a guide for that as well, coming out in the next few days or so. So stay tuned for that, I guess. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope this helped you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.